that going there. All right, we should be good now. I'll double check. Unless somebody has it up, because I have to pull it up on my phone.
I can. It's right.
You're good.
I was gonna say I got it right next to me.
Okay, cool. Just somebody keep on chat if somebody says something, because I can't see it. So.
Oh, yeah, I can.
All right, cool. Well, I guess while people get on here, what's up, everybody? Welcome to GameCast. Today we have Skill, Irish, and the new guy Lono. So, basically,
welcome to Sovereign Esports, gentlemen.
Yeah, definitely. Huge shout out to Lono for joining up, and I'll let him tell you about him and what he does. So go ahead.
Yeah, so I've got saynotorage.com as well as my YouTube channel, and I do a daily Twitch stream. My whole motto is helping you rage less and enjoy your games more. I try to have a high level of good intellectual criticism of games, whether it's gaming culture or decisions made by developers or publishers. I think that we need a better form of communication about games, not to get too whiny and just negative, but to have a more of a, I guess, high top shelf language and communication with respect to video games. So that's kind of the approach I try to take. I try to be a highly interactive streamer. So glad to be here and glad to be part of this. And my first ever podcast talking about video games. It's fun.
Oh, I'm glad you're here, man.
So, go ahead.
You're good, Moose. Go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say, I know we have, it doesn't seem like a lot, but we have two really major topics to talk about today. One of which is going to be E3, what's at E3, and what we can expect and or hope to see at E3. So I know Irish, he's the man with the plan today. He's got it all covered for E3. So if you want to go ahead and take that away for us.
All right. So we'll just start off simple. We've got a couple unusual things if we're just talking about press conferences alone. PC Gaming is actually going to have their first own press conference. They're going to be going last on June 16th, the very last of all the press conferences. And we've got a new first. Bethesda alone will take off on Sunday, the day before the rest of the press conference goes over, and they will have their own press conference, which is a first for both sides. And as we know now, Bethesda is most likely going to entertain Fallout 4, which has been data mined extensively, and it looks like it's going to be a fall announce, which is made the internet very, very happy. And we have a bunch of confirmed games that we know we're going to be seeing at E3. We know there's going to be a new Gears of War. Many people have speculated that that's going to be Gears of War 4. Forza, of course, is going to be back for Xbox. Halo Guardians will be making more of a debut here. I'm not sure if it's going to be campaign or gameplay, probably a little bit of both. Mass Effect 4 is going to have, which is my favorite video game series of all time. They're going to be having a bigger import, and they will be announcing more this year. A couple other titles for Xbox One, of course, Battlefront. Another new Star Wars project as well. And Xbox One, Phil Spencer said that it's going to be their biggest first-party content of the year. And he's made it expressingly clear that they're going to be focusing on first-party games and not third-party games for the conference. We know Sony's going to be announcing their Project Morpheus, and we know Nintendo is going to be having new information on an NX quality NX console, and which is something that's kind of near and dear to Sovereign Esports' heart because we play Titanfall competitively. Respawn is withdrawing completely from E3 this year. They will have nobody present, and they will be showing nothing off. Wow. We've got some good things coming out. Of course, this is going to be actually a big year for E3. A lot of great titles. We're kind of getting into that segment. I mean, it's kind of been dead the past 2 years. It's kind of getting to that point where all the new next-gen titles are ramping up. Sony and Microsoft have both announced that pretty much Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 games are done for. They're not getting any more content, especially after this fall. That's gone. That's done. Nintendo's going to try to make a run at some type of new console. they're still way behind in software sales, big time.
I think it's going mobile based, so you get the game on your phone. It works on your console. It game shares all the XP, kind of like that Amobi kind of thing or whatever.
Hideo Kojima's last game of all time, it looks like that his last Metal Gear will be hit because he's pulled away from all other projects. And Konami's announced personally that they will only be going after mobile gaming now and their card games. So their PC, their PlayStation, all those games are done with. So it may be the last we see of Hideo Kojima at an E3 where he's presenting a game. He's always expressed he wanted to be in film more than video games. So it could be the last we see.
Well, I was one of the things I was most excited about was I'm pretty sure there's going to be a playable division, so that there's going to be people either playing a story mission or even PvP for the division game. Which even though they backed it up a little bit, it's still promising that they're releasing something that you can actually play.
I think Irish got booted. I heard.
I got kicked. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good, man.
So, to finish off what I was saying here is, this is a big year for Xbox, and I think they're pushing the first-party titles because this is their chance to catch up. As other than Metal Gear, Sony's kind of lacking in their own personal titles this year. So if Microsoft, I'm sure they've kept quite a number of titles under wraps. If they can make a push, this can be much a close, tighter race right now. It kind of hurt them when Destiny became, when announced on Sony, went a little bit towards Sony.
Oh yeah, they've been, the sales just say it outright. Right now the PlayStation's got way more sales than Xbox, and it's it's gonna be those things where apparently it does take the exclusive games to sway the community. It's not necessarily the service you provide or how much it costs, which is kind of sad because and honestly, you want them to make a good game for the entire community, not just one for one console. And the sad part is right now there's just better hardware in the PlayStation, and generally it takes a couple years with Microsoft to beat. In the in-game, Microsoft software updates can be better than the original hardware in the PlayStation. But I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting because I know they're really pushing for sales. They got to get these Christmas sales,
Another thing they did announce, they're not going to be focusing on their own console very much, their hardware, but they are going to be talking about improvements to Xbox Live. I heard a rumor they're going to be talking about more security measures because Xbox One very apparently last December got hit with its first big hack, and if everybody remembers 360 Xbox Live, that was like Fort Knox. Nobody hacked it, or at least nobody we know of. We never really experienced it, but ever since Xbox One came out, 360's been suffering the same ideals. Friendless has been down, all stuff like that. This is a big deal for Xbox One. This is their time to show up, and I think with another Gears title, Halo 5 Guardians coming out this year, I'm sure Star Wars Battlefront won't hurt their sales, but I guess the kind of more important thing is that through all this turmoil, Xbox One has kept the hardcore games.
Well, when you can keep the competitive community, you kind of keep the hardcore community, but when you're judging it by, in the future, what game company is going to rather make a game for one console? The one with 15 million people ready to buy it, or the one with like 7 million people ready to buy it? You know what I mean? And that's what scares me, is what if we lose Halo eventually to PlayStation just because they have the biggest community to buy their game? Dollars rule. At a certain point in this gaming community, it's all about money. Yeah. And if they can force you to go buy a PlayStation to play your favorite game, that's exactly what they want you to do. You know what I mean? Or vice versa. So I'm an Xbox lover by heart, so that's the scared part of me. But honestly, I feel like once that shift gets too great, it makes it very scary for game developers to make that choice. Well, if they're going to pay me this much to make it for these people, why not,
All I gotta say is, you guys know, Little here does not know, I am a huge Xbox fanboy and a huge Halo fanboy and I know quite a bit of lore background, I'll tell you what, I don't think they're going to go away from Microsoft anytime soon, because I think when the time comes, when we eventually get this Halo movie, I think Microsoft's going to pony up quite a bit of the budget to make this movie possible.
Yeah.
And that's something they've talked about in the past, and recently they've kind of joked with the idea, but they haven't blown it off, that Xbox would solely produce a Halo movie instead of any like Warner Brothers or anybody like that they would solely pony up the money to whichever director, whichever producers, and make the movie on their own, because they have the money. Microsoft has that kind of money to do that. They
All right, guys. Okay,
I think there's two things to put Mark's fears at ease that's going to keep that from happening. Like, as far as, like, let's just imagine Halo jumping ship to go to PlayStation. There's two things that I think are going to keep that from happening. First, big AAA titles are becoming less and less profitable, so I don't think they're going to make those risky moves. I don't think they're going to just all of a sudden jump ship to another console. And hand in hand with that, kind of tandem with that, something the guy from CD Projekt Red, the development team behind The Witcher 3, said, kind of in response to a lot of the criticisms about the lower performance of the graphics on the different systems, which I don't understand. I thought it looked brilliant on the Xbox. I think some of those criticisms are a bit empty. But I do think when you compare it against a PC, people start to get a little jealous. Something he said, though, was they decided to make it cross-platform because they could have a bigger budget and thus make the world and the game so much larger. So I think to a certain extent what he's saying, if some companies start to see that reality, the budgetary reality with respect to getting that funding when you're cross-platform, which is why I'm hyped Titanfall is going to be the next Titanfall is going to be cross-platform. You get more money, can create a bigger game, and capture a larger audience. That's the only way AAA titles can maintain their profitability. I just don't think you're going to see. I think exclusives are going to start to shrink. Honestly, I think that they're harder to be profitable. I think you're just going to see a lot less of them. And once the console market is saturated and most of the big new buyers and new sales have been made, then it's all about game sales. It's not about the console sales anymore. So I think those two realities are going to keep some of that stuff from happening. Just some of the things I've been reading, and that's what I think.
One thing that's going back a little bit about this Titanfall thing, that kind of concerns me that you're saying that Titanfall or the Respawn isn't going to be at E3 when they have a game coming out, allegedly coming out in 2016. That kind of makes me sad, I guess that's the way to put it. Because
it might make you sad, but I am all for companies pushing back their games to release something flawless or as close to flawless as they can potentially get. And we've seen kind of a dramatic turn in the games that are coming out now are much more polished than like this last batch that we got. And honestly, I am all for if they got to push it back to make it good. Push it back.
That's the thing. If they come out and say, "Listen, we got to push our game back another year. We're just not ready with it." That's fine. I am A-okay with that. I am super happy that the Division is doing that, because this last run of games has just been scotch tape and super glue basically.
Not to mention Ubisoft does not have the greatest reputation of putting out a flawless game. I mean, they've had some real bug-laden issues with a lot of their games.
Right, but
this is total speculation, but it could be a really smart move. They might be waiting to let I'm assuming there's going to be a big Black Ops 3 event, right? Titanfall, Respawn could be potentially saying, let's see all the cards in their hand, because clearly if you watch the trailers, Black Ops 3 is borrowing a ton of crap from Titanfall, like direct ripoffs. And what can happen is if you go and show a lot of the same stuff, Titanfall's got a smaller fan base in comparison to the ravenous Call of Duty fanboys. I played Call of Duty a lot, no hate, but in comparison, those dudes might be like, "Oh, Titanfall's ripping off Black Ops," so they could be waiting. Let Black Ops will show their hand. Here's all of our cool stuff we're doing, and then Respawn could say, "Look, let's avoid some of that. Let's have a more distinct and different identity." So it could be pushback. Let's have something polished, but it also could be a strategic move as well.
I think it would be really cool. Now, this is really far-fetched, but I think it would be really cool if they did for Titanfall 2 like something that Call of Duty does for like their games is they build this huge hype surrounding their game. Like say it comes out in the fall of 2016, so around the summertime, they go around and like tour the country, do like gaming expos and little things here and there, and just do like the demos and the things like that, and try and get their game out there because Titanfall 1 was really awesome. It was fun. It was fun to play on a competitive level. Honestly, I found it better to play competitively than Call of Duty because there's a lot more strategy and knowledge that had to go into the game. It's not just run and shoot people. You had to strategically time your Titans and your everything else, your perks. They banned
it was more reliable too.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. The only problem with I guess Titanfall MLG and game battles or whatever was that towards the end of the first season, I don't know, Lono, if you played Titanfall competitively, but people like Game Sager and
Vengeance
and the Dyslexic Unicorns and Alfredo Plays and all those guys were playing, and then it got towards the end of the season where they were trying to create two super teams. I mean, these two teams, I forget what they were. One was Dyslexic Unicorns and the other one was something else. But they had like 15 of the best people from all the teams throughout the ladder on their teams. And it's like at that point they burnt the ladders out. They single-handedly destroyed the game because they tried to create these two super teams and left all the other regular people that weren't as elite as they were. Nobody could play any games because you were constantly going up against them and it wasn't fun.
New York Yankees symptoms.
Yep.
And it wasn't just that, and this will tie in maybe to something we're talking about later, is when the season was over, Destiny was on the verge of coming out, and a lot of people expected sometime soon after Destiny, if not with Destiny, we would be seeing a rise in their competitive and MLG ladder, which we never saw. No private lobbies, no done.
Yeah, and see, that's one thing.
And now Titanfall's population is way below where they should be, and that fall kind of tapered off, and it never really got its oomph back.
Well, see, here's the thing is, like, I started doing Destiny videos specifically for PvP and esports. That was my whole purpose in creating Destiny in depth and all that, was to discuss PvP and to discuss esports. And we never got the esports, and the developers constantly tossed around competitive multiplayer, competitive, and there's nothing really even competitive. There's not even ranked lobbies to even be competitive. It's just pubs. And I think that if Destiny especially doesn't come out with these private lobbies this fall, then this game is never going to make the 10-year mark that they want. And it's not because the esports community is really that big and influences the game. It's just that literally that's what people want. They either want it for themselves or they want it to watch.
I'm going to say something real quick. Because we're getting a little bit into Destiny here, any final says on E3? Any things we want to talk about, the major titles or the conferences?
That's what I wanted to bring up is what game are you most excited about that you've heard from E3, or what announcement has you the most reeling? I know, me and myself, I'm really looking forward to a Halo announcement, and I want to see a little bit more Halo gameplay. I played the beta, and I really enjoyed it, so I'm really interested to see what y'all's favorite announcement has been.
Which, oddly enough, the beta had one of the best launches of this year when it comes to non-glitches or bugs.
Yep.
Who knew?
Just don't count the game that came with it, just the beta.
Yep.
I can go on about that, but they went ambitious with their coding aspects, and it hurt them. Big time.
So, Lano, what are you looking forward to the most?
Probably anything Gearbox has to talk about. People are like, oh, are we going to hear about Borderlands 3? No, we're not. It's all going to be Battleborn. I think they're making the smart choice. They're going to try and tap into the MOBA setup because that's a super popular game format now. Obviously with Smite, Heroes of the Storm just launched their beta, or it might be an alpha, but yeah, Smite coming to the consoles. I mean, MOBA's becoming one of the biggest genres that people don't just want to play but want to watch. So I'm really anxious to see how Battleborn's going to play out. I have concerns that the Borderlands community is going to play it for the wrong reasons and then critique it in light of it not being Borderlands. But I am concerned it's going to try and straddle too many genres and then fail to capture an audience. So I'm looking forward to Gearbox's stuff. Really give us the deets. I want to know what it's like, how it's going to play. 25 characters? That's crazy.
Nice.
That's really interesting you say that, because like I don't think that's the most hype thing that I've heard about in E3. But then again, you've got one of the most dedicated communities that can really make a game thrive or die.
Yep.
Whether they support it or not.
Oh yeah.
The Borderlands fan base is huge.
It is.
And to great respect, it's got some of the best writing and humor tied into an action adventure game that I've seen in I don't know how long.
All right, Moose, what was your thing or the biggest announcement from E3 for you?
I'm looking forward to some Halo, but I'm really, really looking forward to The Division. I really want to see what they're going to do. Obviously, I didn't get to go to E3 this year like I was hoping, but I know there's going to be a lot of people playing the beta, if they call it a beta. I think they had a closed alpha. They never really said anything about it, but I'm pretty sure it was there. So I'm really interested to see the gameplay. I'm hoping that they're going to allow the people there to record it, or they're going to be able to post some of it so we can analyze it, look at it. I think what they're doing with this game and what they're putting into this game is going to be the next level in gaming. Like, people will start comparing. If it goes right, people will use this game to compare future games like they do with Halo. Like, Halo's story is groundbreaking. Like, that's what you compare stories to. Halo's multiplayer, that's what you compare multiplayer to. Is it as good or better than Halo? And I think The Division is going to go there with hopefully story and game mechanics. So I think that's kind of a new aspect. Most people are always either about story or multiplayer. I think The Division is going to bring in, well, are the game mechanics as good as? And I think that's going to be really awesome going forward into the future.
Alright, I guess that leaves me or Skill. Which one? You want to go first, Skill?
I already said Halo was mine, so you go ahead, man.
Alright, well, quick thought. I just double-checked the tab I had open about the confirmed games for E3, which was updated 2 days ago by IGN.
Yep.
There is no Division.
Really?
No,
Division is
yeah, they pushed back for 2016. I think they're just going to have a playable demo.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think you're not going to see too much from Division this E3, which is interesting.
That figures.
My love spreads wide for a bunch of different genres. I'm really excited to see press conference wise PC Gaming having their own press conference. That's the first time in years they've had that, and Blizzard's going to be showing their new game Overwatch at that press conference. They've slated it for that press conference.
That's
Most
supposed to
likely
be a pretty good game.
StarCraft. They're most likely going to see some of the last StarCraft, also probably for that PC Gaming. That's basically all I've heard for that, but for me it's a tie-in, and it's all a tie-in for Xboxes. I'm interested to see this new Gears of War game, if it is Gears of War 4. I'm interested to see what it looks like. Halo 5, definitely. Anybody in Sovereign Esports can tell you how much I flipped out about the box art and how they're bringing people from the book in now. And I've had discussions with people in Sovereign who know the Halo lore, talking about the books and how it can play a huge, huge part. And then I'm also interested in Mass Effect 4. I think was one of the best written RPG games, and one of the best stories we've ever seen, and they've won BioWare's hands down to me the king of RPGs. They've won Game of the Year on X amount of their titles, whether it's Dragon Age, The Old Republic, or Mass Effect. They've won numerous times. Their writing's fantastic, and we only saw maybe a minute 30 glimpse of environments from Mass Effect 4 last year. So Mass Effect 4 showing something this year, maybe getting a possible date, or
I think
a
it's
legitimate
confirmed
guy,
that it's
gonna be
Boston. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Boston. So
Yeah,
I'm not,
so
not 100%, but I'm pretty sure
it'll be interesting. But I'm definitely more excited for Halo 5, and I'm hoping that they show off both campaign gameplay, a little bit more of the campaign story, and I'm hoping they show off, of course, some more of their multiplayer. They actually did a great kind of like hype thing within MMC. If you did Halo 2 or Halo 3, they had cutscenes that were tailored to Halo 5 already within those games. If you start Halo 2, the first cutscene is actually from Halo 5, and the end scene is after the last cutscene is from Halo 5. So it was kind of like a little smart hype move, and Nightfall has turned out to be a pleasant little mini-series that they're putting out there from Ridley Scott, which is also interesting. So they're doing a lot for Halo, and Halo is ending. We've only got one more game left confirmed, and that'll be Halo 6, and that'll be it. So it'll be very much. We're getting more story involved, which is something you don't see. We're getting more story complex. Let me rephrase that, and that's something you don't see in an FPS game at all, especially for Call of Duty or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing, what Halo has. I really hope that they bring back, like a little mini beta just to give us a little bit, a taste. I know we've only got, a couple months.
October
yeah, we got till October, but I'd
months.
like just, like another 2-week taste. That would be delightful. I am also looking forward to, seeing what Destiny has coming out. I think, like I said, with their new expansion, true expansion, or game, whatever you want to call it, it's either Comets, the Taken King, whatever. I don't know. They've got the Taken King. What's the other one that they just licensed?
Well, the Taken
Another
King
one.
is virtually confirmed. There were some pictures that showed up on Reddit of a Red Bull box that has a Taken King code inside of it. The trademark was there, and it looked legit to me.
Yeah,
So,
it is because it shows Flame Sword. It's funny, More Console. I love More Console to death. He's a really great friend, but he doesn't. I don't think he knew who Flame Sword was, and so he did a video about it. And he's like, there's this guy on the box, and I was like, dude, that's Flame Sword, buddy. But yeah, it's RedBullQuest.com, and basically you get like an extra quest. Like if you buy a pack of Red Bull, there's a code. You get like, I guess, an extra story mission or something from the Taken King. So I really hope that they're not just gonna do another DLC. Like I hope it's a true expansion, and basically like the one step down from an actual game.
They said it's going to be the biggest and most substantial amount of content yet, which, but classic Bungie, that if they add one extra mission compared to the last stuff, they'll be like, well, it's the biggest yet. But
Right.
I hope they get specific. If they don't get specific, I'll be concerned. If it's all hype and all generic, I'll be like, yeah, that'll be concerning. Because the Twitch reveals have been a really great way. When I saw the House of Wolves Twitch reveal, I was like, okay, I'm in. They're making fixes, they're making improvements.
Exactly.
But if they don't get into the details of how it's going to play out and how they've got to woo the audience. The audience at this point, this could be maybe our segue into House of Wolves. But yeah, I think they got to get specific.
Yeah, and see, the thing is Bungie does things different than literally every other game company. They don't talk about their game enough. Up until now, they've been, really hush-hush, really super secret, and I think if they keep doing that, it's going to hurt them. Because people have, they got the game, they got both expansions, they saw the hype versus the content, and I think that they're going to stick with that. They'll be like, oh, well, there's this lack of hype or this hype over nothing, like the secret hype. And like it's probably going to be nothing, and they're going to move on. There's a lot of great games coming out, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, Halo 5 is probably going to be my game. I'm still going to play Destiny and whatever, but I think especially if they don't bring out the private lobbies, there's really going to be no hope for Destiny. What were you going to say, Irish?
I got one thing to say about that. And you're talking about Destiny, and Destiny. They stated Destiny is going to be a 10-year game. All right.
Mm-hmm.
This is something word out of their mouth from Bungie. What's funny to me is that at this point, Bungie took more care of Halo 1, 2, and 3. I know that's a franchise, but they took better care of it, and they took better care of their promoting of that, and they're more caring of that, and their DLC more so far than Bungie if you combine those three. And that's really odd to me, considering how much money was put into Destiny, which is...
I think that's
probably one of the
Activision's
most,
fault.
it's a
That's
huge amount of money.
Activision's fault because
Yep.
Halo had Microsoft. Microsoft literally is the best at marketing. Look at what they did for Destiny when they weren't allowed to do for Destiny when they made that cologne ad that was Destiny. I don't know if you guys remember that. but they went like behind Sony and was like a big FU, and they went and still promoted the Destiny through this Cologne ad or whatever before they had to take it down. And I just think the way that Microsoft markets is better than either Activision or PlayStation. PlayStation really didn't have that much marketing at all. I didn't see anything special from them towards Destiny. And Activision, I think, is really just because Activision has Call of Duty in one pocket for the Xbox community. It's not an exclusive title, but Call of Duty is more heavily influenced on Xbox One. So by them having Destiny, which isn't a PlayStation exclusive, but it's more heavily influenced on PlayStation, they've got their hand, both pockets are full at that point because they have both sides. And I think that they probably didn't do a good enough job and probably won't do a good enough job promoting Destiny the way it needs to be promoted.
And it's unfortunate in the fact that Activision is under my list of evil publisher titles that you don't want to see. I mean, EA's under there. Come on, I mean,
Well,
do better.
honestly, they might be going about it almost ingenious, because when they do these Twitch reveals, not only did they set the most people watching a stream at one time record,
Yep.
it didn't cost them very much to set
That's right.
that up. It's not buying a commercial during the Super Bowl. You know what I
Right.
mean? And that's what PlayStation did. They didn't drop $20 million for that 2-minute segment.
True.
So in theory, they could be saving themselves money to invest back in the game. But then again, if you're really trying to get people back into your game, you're going to have to jaw drop them,
Yeah.
because there's just so much content coming out. And personally, I think they really started very well with the House of Wolves expansion, the
I'm a
DLC.
skeptic, and I can agree with that.
Yeah. Well, then here's the question, and I think Lono's probably best suited to answer this: is does House of Wolves hurt or help Destiny?
Yeah, I think it does both. It's, interestingly enough, I think it helps in that they're proving that they will listen to the community. I think that's the first thing I took from the Twitch reveal and from the content. They didn't invalidate the raid gear. They're giving you ways to ascend your old guns up. Like, they're basically not doing what the Dark Below did. The Dark Below kind of felt like a reset button. Like, you pay this money to basically have all your hard work somewhat invalidated. So I think they're proving that they'll listen to the community. I don't give them too much credit for that, because they kind of have to. Like, if this game is gonna survive for 10 years, they can't keep digging in and saying, no, this is what we want, this is how we want the game to be. If the community keeps rejecting that and doing loot caves and exploits and saying, no, we want to do it our way, then they're gonna have to listen to the community. So they don't get too much credit for that, but I think that is a sign that the House of Wolves helps Destiny. Where I think it hurts Destiny is I think they're sort of repeating mistakes, and some of this is experimental, right? It's organic. You don't know what communities are going to do. You don't know how they're going to respond to the games and the incentives that you give them. But with the raids, with the low engagement levels with the raid and the disproportionate amount of development time it probably took to develop and create the raids, as well as patch the problems, the low engagement levels, I think, showed them that something was off, something was wrong. People weren't doing it. I think there were too many hurdles. There was no matchmaking. It was really hard. If you didn't have the right gear, you were done for. Once the Galahorn became if you had to have, people wouldn't let you play with them if you didn't have Galahorn for Crota.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're doing the same thing, unfortunately, with House of Wolves. They are narrowing the accessibility. So Trials of Osiris, I mean, if you're not a PvP player and you don't have the Thorn, you're already set back. You're gonna have a really hard go. That's just the fact of the matter.
Well,
go ahead.
I guess you can argue that with some of the new weapons and stuff they're dropping, with this re-roll ability aspect, you can kind of make your favorite weapon from other weapons now. I found that you can pretty much make a Fellwinter's Lie shotgun if you roll it just like a Fellwinter's Lie has and whatnot. So I think they are giving you some more diversity in the PvP realm. Like I'm all PvP in Destiny. Like, I'll do PvE in the raids just for the challenge, but for the most part I just like stomping noobs. So like I went to the trials today, and this week it was one of the new maps, and it was very sniper based, and I found like you weren't going up against one sniper anymore. Everybody was using different snipers every game, pretty much. Like there'd be one icebreaker, one Praetus, one Song or Ute or whatever. But I think they really have diversified which weapons are valid in PvP. There's a new hand cannon called Ill Will. Like if you can roll Luck in the Chamber, you can get a 2-shot kill, which is pretty awesome. So in the PvP aspect, they've really opened a lot of avenues for you to explore your skill tree a little bit more and find things that are for really fine-tuning your game. But there's not, besides trials, if you don't play PvP, you're not going to get into PvP because of trials. Let me put it that way. You're just going to get stomped every time, and that's a little disheartening, especially since I can't really tell in the matchmaking aspect whether or not it's skill-based or if it's just whose connections work out the best. You know what I mean?
It's connection. They said that before it came out that they were able to, since it's all full, so you can only play with the full team. Because of that mechanic, they're able to prioritize connection as the utmost important thing, which I praise them for. People are saying it's innovative. I'm like, that's not innovative. That's how matchmaking should work. Connection should be the number one priority.
Right.
But like you're saying, though, I think you're saying, well, that's not going to convince you to play PvP. I think what they did was, I think Bungie said, look, at the GDC 2015, they released those numbers. I talk about that. That pie chart is infamous on any time I blog or write about Destiny. The engagement levels for the raid and PvP were, like, embarrassingly really low. Like, not a lot of people were spending time in either. Raids got hurdles. PvP isn't really how they marketed the game, and if you're not a PvP player, you just get scrubbed out, and it's like, I'm done. You know, most of the people were playing the PvE content, so I think Bungie says, let's incentivize PvP, let's put the best rewards in PvP. All the really good elemental primaries are in trials. You can get them with Skolas, but it's a lot less likely. But I think what people are going to feel, they're going to feel the same thing they felt with the raids on hard. They're going to feel like the best gear is out of my reach. I can't do it. I'm not good enough. I can't get a good team. 9-0 is just not within my grasp. That's my concern. I went 8-1 and I'm not a PvP player. I've got people to help me. I'm like lucky, but I think if you look at that pie chart, the lion's share of the community is going to feel like this isn't rewarding me. This isn't a fun and rewarding experience, which could really, I think that's where I think House of Wolves does hurt. And that's just a split loot pool problem. Put it in the prison. Just put it in the prison.
The good keep getting better, and the guys that don't have the gear keep staying the same, more or less. It's more skewed to the in-game.
I can attest to a bunch of this because I've talked about this a couple times in past podcasts. Is I stopped Destiny because it couldn't just hold me on, and I've got so many other games at my disposal, whether I'm playing the Old Republic here on the computer or any other console games that have kind of lost me. Now the ascending gear and getting marks and going to Vanguard got me really up to 32, and now I'm at halfway to 34 here, but I'm lacking Galahorn. As PoE last week was insurance, I didn't have a good machine gun, so getting out of that stasis was... I couldn't get myself out of that stasis. I just didn't have anything good enough with an impact.
I happened to run that this week. They buffed you got a huge buff from the, not the Goblin, but the guy that gives you the buff. The eye, yes, and it's almost 100% more. You can get out in like 3 shots, and it's the damage negated from the bubble 25%. So if you're dying last time, you have 25% longer to survive. So that was not
great,
hurt us
last
as bad.
week was horrible trying to get out of that when I didn't have the
Does that scare you guys though? Like it scares me that as one of these people that literally just rushes through the game content, it scares me that we're only like week 2 and we're already nerfing things, but everybody's gonna get better. You know what I mean?
But yeah, I think it's because Bungie's really good at combing over stats, and I think they probably saw a really high spike in the fail rate and the quit, and they said something's off. Like people were getting there and just like bailing. They're like, we can't do it. It's also the whole that, and woven into that, I don't understand, because unless you shoot the eye, just a quick tip: have one or two guys assigned to the eye that have really good shotguns, and then get close to them. They'll shoot you out of your shield. You don't have to worry about it. They'll get the buff and they'll blast you out. If you're not geared up, let somebody else get you free.
Yeah, I think what Destiny needs to do, in my opinion, House of Wolves was great. It basically revitalized a dying game. It wasn't necessarily dying like Titanfall did, but a lot of people were moving on because there wasn't nothing. But is what it needs to have is it's got to fix the PvP. It has to fix some of these core elements that were with their other games. Halo was the best at it, so it's not like they can't do it. They don't have the technology or whatever. They do. They need to add rankings. They need to add some sort of reward outside of just RNGesus. There needs to be something, with the competitive aspect. They need to add private lobbies. They need to add ranked lobbies. Even if they just keep regular PvP and they want to call it competitive, whatever, call it competitive. But they need to have a ranked lobby set aside for those who want to be serious, want to play competitively, and want that type of challenge.
Well,
I will say quickly on the on Bungie and how they're doing with PvP on House of Wolves. Granted, they did it well with Halo, but this is the only kind of, right now, I'll give this to Bungie, like a little, and I'm putting this away in quotation marks, a little slack. They lost a lot of people after Halo 3, after Halo 2 to 343 Industries, and they lost even more after Halo 3. It's like everybody from their team migrated to 343 Industries, and they had to bring in a lot of people, and it's not like Activision gave them a lot of people from Call of Duty. They had to bring in a lot of new people from a lot of different areas. And I'll say something else is, yes, this game lacks in PvP, but I think some of it could be made up. Maybe this is just me being the story guy at heart, but the PvE, the storyline, the story that was incorporated in Destiny was shit. Probably one of the worst I've seen in a long time. And you just gotta give... I don't care if it's PvP or PvE, you've gotta find some way in your game to revitalize your fan base and get them in growth. You have to do something on either side.
They're definitely working more on the story for Destiny 2. I know they hired a production company that did like Godzilla and a bunch of really good cinematic movies to come and help them with their cinematics for Destiny 2, I'm pretty sure. To me it seems like the competitive community isn't going to be their forte, for sure. If they wanna hook, line, and sink more people, they gotta bolster the story missions, and they gotta make it was kind of like what Lana was saying when they spent so much time and effort in making the 6-person raids, but it was like 12% of people ever got through the entire raid. Got to the end boss and beat them. 18% of people tried it. You know what I mean? So there's it was so. To me, they've got to somehow incorporate maybe guilds, clans that are more accessible, easier to find friends, maybe put in a looking for group, in the game, so you take out the getting online aspect of it, where you can matchmake with people at a certain level and do a certain raid. But to me, I think they're going to have to bolster the PvE, and that'll keep your diehard PvPers playing regardless. You know what I mean? If you love the game and you got the best guns, you like going into Iron Banner and you like doing, the trials. And so I think if you can keep the PvP or the PvE aspect, the story missions, the raids, you're going to keep the larger community, and that's really what we need, is to keep the community, because that keeps the DLCs really good, keeps the hype up for the next games, and and honestly, without a large community, we're not going to get the hot fixes we want done as fast as we want them done, and things like that. Bungie's been a lot more receptive about fixing things now on a timely manner. I think we only had the chest exploit maybe for 2 weeks at max, and they fixed that. That's great. and they upped the key drop, and that's great. You know, we really needed that to keep the 7-hour farming for nothing out of the game, because that's rough.
Yeah,
And
I was getting fed up with
It was
that.
still horrible drop rate.
And I've actually, I will go into Prison of Elders with my friend on almost any level now, just for the better chance of getting the keys off the chest and helping your friend out, you know?
Yeah.
I've found that it's really bolstered me on, well, I already did 35 this week, but now my buddy needs 32, mine as well, just because you got a really good chance of getting something out of the chest.
Yeah.
Have any of y'all gotten the exotic bounty drop yet? Off of
Yeah, I've got 3.
Have you gotten one of the weapons yet?
No, he's got to summon me or whatever. I got him yesterday, so it's like 72 hours from yesterday where he'll summon me or whatever. Varix will. Skolas was, I beat him twice, but he gave me 2 the first time I beat him. I don't know why, but then I got a third one the second time I beat him.
Well, I ended up picking the Queen's Breaker's bow, and I took it into PvP. I actually took it in the trials without leveling it up, and it's amazing. It's hard to describe having a charge rate to go on a sniper, but it's almost seems like they timed it perfect for when people res people in trials. So literally, I could just stand in one spot and just pop the guy over and over and over.
I will say, once that popped up in
sick.
PvP, that person was usually on the top of the leaderboard because that was a dangerous weapon to go up against.
Yeah,
I've heard that.
I've heard it's a beast in PvP. I do think it's interesting though that like as a PvP player, you just said a lot of what I've said about how they need to focus on PvE. I mean, especially since they've already kind of given away that PvP doesn't have the greatest engagement numbers. And I'm worried Trials is going to continue to narrow that. And so you guys that like PvP are going to continually feel like... I talked about this in my split identity video where Destiny kind of has 2 identities, and I feel like both sides of the community are always going to feel like they don't get enough, because like, well, you're giving the PvP guys that, why don't you give us more stuff, and vice versa. I actually think that's why, unfortunately, a lot of your wish lists for PvP, I just don't think you're going to get them. I think that when you try to appeal to everybody, you end up appealing to no one to a certain degree. Like, it kind of waters down. Both sides of the game are very diluted because instead of being just a big MMORPG or just a really good PvP, it's trying to be both, which is where all the balancing problems come from and where the blandness of the game comes from, where you're just kind of like, this is it, this is the PvP experience. So, but it is interesting that you're a PvP player and you're like, yeah, push the PvE because that'll keep the game going and we can keep scrubbing out noobs.
In this case, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, when I first started playing the game at its launch, I was excited for the story missions, and then you started to realize just towards you get to end of Earth, it's like, why? And you just wanted to get through it. I mean, there was no emotion from probably one of the best actors we have right now. The story was flaccid, to say the least. And the most interesting part is the stranger, and you get maybe, I don't know, a total of 20 lines, and then she's gone, and you don't know what the hell just happened. And then they're all like, hey, don't worry, just unlock everything and go to Grimoire, then you can learn the story. We're just not going to tell it to you.
Well, see, even at that, the Grimoire, like, I haven't read all of them, but I'll read some of them, and it's like, it still doesn't give you enough story. It's just like a 30-second snippet about that particular thing, place, or item, and it's just like,
yeah,
okay.
That's why I think a page out of someone's storybook, like Star Wars: The Old Republic, great MMO, had some worries with end content, but it's PvE, it's storyline. Best story I've ever seen in an MMO. I don't care if you have to do by class, but take some pointers off of their writers who wrote that story and just buff it up a little bit and the cinematics a little bit. Give you something to care. Give you something to get emotionally invested in the game, because I am not. Like, I'm more invested in Halo's emotional story through all their games than I will ever be in Destiny at this point. And you got to give me some reason to care about the Traveler or the Speaker or the Tower or the Vanguard or anybody, or even the Last City, which you know very little about. It's just like you're overlooking it. Hey, it's there.
Yeah.
Or even how the Ghost is made, or how Dinklebot has created you, or res you, that fact.
I actually think, though, up until Destiny 2, they should do very little, like, oh, we're going to really try to rebuild, all of a sudden, like put it all together and make the story amazing. It would almost be too much of a juxtaposition, like beginning to end, like bland, 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 amazing. Like it wouldn't. I don't think it would work that well. And I think the community's just accepted the fact that, look, you're not going to give us a story, give us content, give us an experience, give us rewards. Yeah. So I think the content between now and Destiny 2, all they should focus on is lots and lots and lots of content. Like, take the Prison of Elders, expand it to 6-man teams, add vehicles, add walkers, add other things, like add other elements, so that it's just bigger and cooler and more rewarding. Because that's where the community's at now. Is like, just give us content. The story is over.
I agree.
Well, what do you guys think about this?
If you're gonna do something for the story, it has to be. We're talking a full expansion, if not another game.
Well, what if they did?
Now.
What if they went and did, instead of giving you like the story through the missions, kept the missions and the game the way it is, and then just do cinematic stories, kind of like how World of Warcraft did. You get the new expansion, and then there's like a short little cinematic movie, basically, that kind of gives you a story. You know, obviously it'd need to be a little bit more in depth than, you know, one of those cinematics. But if they gave you the story in a cinematic movie-esque way, like they did with with the House of Wolves trailer or whatever, how in the cinematic it's like a movie experience. So you get the expansion or the game, and then you have the option to watch the story, and then you can play the game knowing the story already without having to do, the cutscenes or the...
Well, then you got to give them a small amount of credit, because they have been doing better. I know we were probably expecting actual cinematics, not just like a trip to the lighthouse where you shield your face from the sun. But, I think if someone were to buy Destiny right now, play it from start to finish, watch the little cinematics when it was their turn to watch the cinematics, they would say there's a lot more story than what we're used to. We just played through the game, waited and waited and waited for one cinematic to drop, played through that expansion, waited and waited and waited for one more cinematic, and it's not really tangible when you're waiting on it for so long. But then again, I think, if they really want to shock us and do well, they just need to focus on storyline, like you guys were saying for the second one, because they've seen you don't have to have a great story to keep the numbers. Destiny was one of the, I think until a couple other games dropped more recent, it's still
continually are making Bungie more money than they've probably made in a long time, and it's
average player engagement 77 hours. The average players put 77 hours in the game. That's high. That's very, very high. And I actually read an article about somebody theorized that's why all the cutscenes and dialogue are so bland, because by design you're going back through and playing the same sections over and over. And if they were really big and bombastic and like full of emotion, they would start to feel cheesy and glib and very just like, oh, I gotta watch this for like the 20th or hear this for like the 200th time. So I thought that was a decent theory as to why Dinklebot and everything is so subdued, because you just start to ignore it. You're like, well, this is the 25th time I've played this mission. I thought that was a decent theory, so they'll have to think through that for Destiny 2. If they really ramp up the story, the cinematics, and the dialogue, make it skippable. And maybe,
Thank you.
Yes, and don't send us back through so much. If you're going to send us back through, maybe in a different way where you're not constantly replaying the same audio.
Like, just drop onto the surface without having the audio play while you're going into orbit.
Yeah.
Like, just drop in. You're still doing all the same objectives for Shrine of Onyx or something like that, but you're skipping over that cinematic before you go into the Temple of Crota with the Stranger, but you skip over that because you're replaying it.
Yeah.
Like, something like that where you cut out those. I mean, even now, it's already annoying to redo the story missions because it's all like, Dinklebot, have some emotion, please.
Right.
For the love of God, man. It's like, we had to wait until House of Wolves with the Queen's little sidekick to get some emotion in the game. It's like,
well, I praise them for this, so I think this is a good idea, like, developmentally. They get a lot of good use out of their capital. Like, I say they take their linear level design and they reverse it and everything feels new. I mean, that first mission on House of Wolves, I was like, wait a minute, I'm on like, it all felt fresh and new, and then suddenly I realized where I was. I actually think that's a really smart way to get a lot of capital out of your development. I don't think they should go away from that. I just think they need to be smarter about when you send us back through. Don't bore us with the same dialogue,
I
cutscenes, and
think
story
as the
elements.
game gets on, I know we're running close on time, but as the game goes on, and in the beginning they said that the plan was to visit each planet in the solar system. So I think
It's a lot more planets to go through.
yeah, there's still more planets. I mean, we have Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars. So
Pluto.
so yeah, we
Pluto needs to be included. Let's be honest. I don't care.
it does.
Like
It does, honestly.
some small little raid area, and that's all that we get is a raid.
Yeah, probably. Well,
Give it some
it
love,
could end
damn
up
it.
being something like Mercury. Like Mercury's not really a playable planet. You just go there for trials or the
Yep.
PvP map. But
Still
I
got
think as we
Jupiter
get to these other
Neptune,
planets,
Uranus,
I
planet.
think there will be, like, as we start to get more content, and then the replayability factor, be like, oh, you'll go back to a mission on Earth or on Mars or something that you haven't played in a while because you're deep out in Neptune or something. So, I think with the more content, and then it becomes less replayable, and it's more like at one point, it's probably towards the end of the Destiny life cycle, it's going to end up being nostalgic.
Yeah.
I think they need to come up with more events, though, not just Iron Banner, or we're not going to have necessarily the Queen's Wrath Embassy too much anymore. 'Cause we do
Well,
have,
that
well,
brings me to another point is the Seven Seraphs, which is a faction that was announced with the game, but it hasn't shown up yet. Just like Trials just now, or Osiris just now showed up, and it's part of Trials of Osiris. So if maybe they're holding the Seven Seraphs back as another either event or something along that lines, or maybe they're just waiting for Destiny 2 to come out, and introduce it with that.
Well, there's a couple things. There's 2 more locations in the reef that haven't been really exposed that you can go to, kind of off to the right when you go to your map where Prison of Elders is. There's 2 more little dots that we hadn't got to see what's supposed to go there. It looks like there's plenty of room in the reef for more activities. There's that one little queen area with the person that'll go on guard when you walk by them, And I honestly think the method they've done with this last installment was kind of like a trickle method. They gave us a little bit the week before. They gave us a little bit more on the DLC. They gave us a little bit more the week after. So to me, it seems like there's still several things. I think there's still 10 more Grimoire cards available to pick up that aren't accessible right now, which is pretty cool. That came out with the House of Wolves release. So there's definitely some more content to still come. With Trials, there's a lot of in-game gear that isn't going to be accessible until until they either nerf it, where you can just get that gear randomly somehow just for participating, which I could totally see them doing that, because I've had several friends that they've gotten the same gun 4 or 5 times, and it's making them want to quit just because they can't get something they want,
Yeah.
I have an interesting idea, and I think it would be great if Bungie did this, either for this large content, if it induces more story in PvE, or Destiny 2. What if the Seven Seraphs are who the stranger works for? And that delves into their story. Like, the Seven Seraphs are... So right now our bounds are Venus, the Reef, Mars, and the Moon. What if something beyond that, called the Seven Seraphs, is who the stranger's working for? Because we know she's talked to... That was probably the most interesting part of the story, is she was this aloof character who was following your exploits, but we also got a couple glimpses that she was talking to someone else. And she's obviously not very much a part of the Vanguard or the Tower, so what if she's a part of the Seven Seraphs? Whether that's a group that's working for... It's kind of like an underground group that's maybe working independently, aside from, being alongside the Traveler and the Speaker.
Well,
that would be an interesting plot point to delve into if you used it that way, and that would get me involved, personally.
could be
Add a little bit of story in that,
because
make the Seven Seraphs a rival to maybe the Tower, and
Well-
who the stranger's working for, that'd be great.
because see the whatever she is,
She's an exo hunter, from what I can tell.
Yeah, she is, like, if you read her grimoire cards, you'll see that she's basically like a time traveler, a time bender, however you want to look at it, because she refers to being in the same place, replaying the same events multiple times. You know, in one of her grimoire cards, she's like, you know, I stood right here, the same place as I always stand, and she's like, the same moves I always make, and she's like, and then I wait for, you know, whatever to happen, and the same events replay. So she clearly comes back into time, you know, over and over and over again. Now, if you notice in the opening trailer to Bungie, like when you first put the game in, and then they're walking on, you know, the astronauts or whatever, they're walking through the planets or whatever, it takes a second to notice, and you're probably going to have to go back and watch it because I didn't realize it the first time.
I know what you're talking about.
The background changes each time. It's different. They're still walking, but then the scenery changes. Like, it's different. The mountains are different height, and the things are different in the background, which to me represents what she's saying is that these events are replaying over and over and over again, kind of like what you would get from like the Matrix or something, where, you know, the same event replays, you know, over.
Yeah. Time is cyclical. We repeat the same things.
Yeah.
And we do the same. Yeah. So I mean, seraphs are angelic beings, right? So like Osiris and all the Greek stuff in there. I mean, with the god helmets that you can get, they represent the different gods. Seraphs being like out guardians, like we haven't seen yet, like that she could work for, or the speaker works for. I think that would work within the mythology and within the word, seraphs. And if like that makes me think of like Doctor Who, how she's like. She's going to all these different times and places, and everybody's making the same stupid mistakes.
And because of the mythology behind the Seraphs and what we kind of suspected, I mean, I guess the one thing Destiny was great at is it made Reddit into one huge multiple conspiracy theories about what Destiny really is. Like, oh, the Traveler's evil, Vex are good. Oh, shit, we did something wrong. But, no, like, make the 7 Seraphs. We know the mythology behind Seraphs. And the Stranger almost looks like she has Vex technology because she just disappears straight out of the tower hangar. Like that. Like she just glides off into the distance. So if the 7 Seraphs used the mythology behind that and used that would be a great rival faction.
Don't they shift from dimensions? Isn't that why those platforms pop in and out?
Yeah.
So
And they mentioned in the archive mission, and I'm just remembering this off the top of my head because it's been the heroic for X amount of times, is that the Vex predates anything. Like, it's been here longer than almost anything. The Vex are here for the longest time. So, you know, that technology, what the Stranger is, and the Seraphs and what their actual mythology is and our mythology, I mean, you could have a lot to play with there, and you could really develop a story there. Because whatever story they do for Destiny 2, you've got to pick up from where that Stranger left off. Because it was kind of like a goodbye, and then that was it.
Yeah.
So you gotta pick that up off. So wherever Destiny 2, however it does, it's gotta pick up with the Stranger, and that would be really cool if the 7 Seraphs are the ones behind her events and leading you kind of where you need to be. That would be a very interesting thing.
How cool would it be? And you know, I'll you know, we'll end it after this. You know, go through last word or whatever.
So hire me, Bungie. I know what I'm doing.
But how cool would it be if in the next Destiny there was either a mission or like a raid, like a special event where you had to either meet up with the Stranger and she was just an AI character that went through this mode with you, a raid or whatever, and she did her thing, and then we had to either protect her or fight with her, something like that, or we had to, you know, Mario rescue her from Bowser type thing. But I think having her alongside of you through like a raid or something, you know, massive like that, like say we have to fight to get her, then we get her, and then we have to fight with her to get back out, and something like that, you know, where she's actually playing alongside with us. I think that'd be something that's kind of cool and, well, not yet done in Destiny. At least.
What I just said gets me hyped about 7 Seraphs. If Destiny could do something along those lines, then that'd be great. And they bolster the story ammo because the Stranger probably was the best of the story. Because it was the only thing that piqued your interest. Like, who the hell is she? How does she know where I am? Why does she keep looking at me even when I'm dead? My ghost is trying to revive me here. Like, she was there from the very beginning. She only got a couple of lines, and she was by far the most emotional, most in-depth, and most complex character.
Right.
But we never got to know too much more. So if the Seven Serifs are really doing by their mythology, I would almost, I mean, you could make them a faction, get gear from them, but I would almost make them a rival of the Tower, they're doing their own way aside from the Traveler and what that's doing. Maybe they're all Vanguards and Guardians that have decided, no, let's move on, or we're hired by the Serifs. Because you can make them aloof and mysterious as a stranger, but add in that emotional depth, that would tie me in.
Yeah.
That is the story I could get behind for Destiny.
Cool. Well, we're going to end up wrapping it up here, about 9 minutes over, but does anybody have any last things they want to throw out there real quick? Lano?
I would just say thanks for having me. It was fun. That's one of my favorite things to do is talk video games. I end up doing that more on my Twitch stream sometimes than playing. I get in debates with people in the chat about Borderlands storyline elements and stuff. We get in pretty good debates. So it's good to have like that back and forth. I like it.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Skill?
Well, I was gonna say, there's with Trials of Osiris coming out, there's a little bit more depth that's been put into the game with your skill tree builds for your classes. I know if any of y'all have been struggling real bad, there's a few things that you can do to help out your team and yourself. One of the main things is there's this new meta game where people are using final round in their sniper. And then it's a one-shot kill with the first shot that they make, right? So they just start the match, shoot 3 bullets or whatever, and on their 4th shot, it's a guaranteed kill. So that's just one tip. If you hear them spamming shots directly off spawn, don't go to the sniping alleys because they're going to have an advantage. There's been a new game type or meta play where you can run Radiant Skin with a ram helmet on your Warlock. Takes like 2 full clips damage absorption, and that's why you're throwing out nades and stuff like that. So honestly, if you run melee, shotgun, and Radiance with a ram, you can easily take out 3 people in a room. Take out, it's almost OP, stupid how much health you have. And this week, I just hope you're good with snipers because it's a tough map really without having the best sniper skills. I recommend Icebreaker, especially if you're not the best sniper, but you might be forced to play sniper on your team or whatnot. Icebreaker is a little bit more forgiving, especially with that explosion round. It helps clear teammates from that insta-res or whatever. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got for this week.
Cool. All right, well, we'll be back next week, and we'll see you guys later.
Peace.